Greetings, dear friends. It's time for another gospel broadcast. The gospel I preach to you is the final gospel. There'll never be another gospel written for humanity. Now, there'll be some people who need a gospel, but they'll go back under the law, and there's plenty of gospel there. But for the people that are going to meet the Lord in the air, the people who are going to be resurrected out of the grave, who are Christians, are going to be a people who had a final gospel. And that gospel was the message that Paul gives us under the jurisdiction of Jesus Christ. I've been thrilled to talk to you on this subject, and I'm not near through. I'll try to get through this subject as quickly as I can, but I want to deal with it one more time. I want you to go with me to the 4th chapter of Philippians, chapter 4, and verse 9. This verse 9 reads, "Those things which you have both learned and received and heard and seen in me, do." Boy, that's a mouthful, isn't it? What is he saying here? Paul is saying here, I received the revelation that Christ lived in human beings. I preached that revelation because that's what's going to happen to born-again people. They're going to have Christ living in them when they're born again. And so he says, I want you to know that the things I have learned. He says 3 things about that learning. He says, I have learned, received, and heard, and seen. Now that constitutes what a Christian is. That's the Christian life. Your life should be made up of those 4 things. That people could take a look at you and say that I could learn from you. I could learn from you. Have you ever had that feeling? Have you ever been looking at a multitude of people and say, I wonder if any of them have ever heard the Christian message? I wonder how many of them, even those in religion, know that God expects Christ to live in us and flow out of us. Not the way he did things, but the way we do things, he should live in us and move out of us through those things we are. Did it ever bother you? I spend a lot of time in airports. That's where you can see a massive lot of people moving back and forth. And the thought always hits me when I look at them. How many of them are human beings who know that they have an incompleted life if their life has not had a rebirthing by the God seed where he placed Christ in us. Oh, it makes me want to run out and grab them and set them down and say, let me tell you the most important thing about your life. Let me tell you the most important thing about living today. The most important thing, not about religion, not about churchianity, not about preachers, but let me tell you the most important thing about you. That God never intended that you live your own life. He never intended that. He intended that Christ live in you. And that the things you did would be those things that commemorate, that honor this Christ that lives in you. See, they don't know that. I could put up a sign and say, I'm a Christian, and there wouldn't be anybody who would know what a Christian is. They wouldn't know. Paul said, I have learned, I have received, I've heard, and I've seen things that are in me that I want the people to do. I want the people to do what I have learned, what I have heard, what I have received, and what I have seen. I want them to learn of it. I want them to receive it. Because they're going to live life and never know who they were. They're going to live in a world and never know why they're here. Some of the greatest people that ever die say, I never did find out why I lived. Isn't that sad? They weren't supposed to live, and they're dying with that knowledge. God didn't create human beings on this earth to live. He created them on this earth to trust Him, to accept His Son, and be rebirthed. Rebirthed. Every human being needs to be born again. I thought it was kind of unusual the other day in this political stage and here in America that a fellow was listing the different groups of people who believed in certain politicians, and he had one list up there that said the born again. I didn't get how big a number he had for that, but I want to tell you, that was something he must have thought of. There must be a group of people who are born again. No, he didn't believe that. He believed that there was a group of people who said they were born again. They go around with a sign on their back saying, yes, I've been born again. But our scripture verse says that the born again have learned, have heard, have received, and have received the things of Christ. Get it? It isn't what you know, it's what Christ in you knows how to use through you. That's what it's all about. Just learning that. Well, I've talked myself out of time today. You see, I just get warmed up and get moving, and then I have to go on. But I'll be back. I'll stay here as long as the Lord opens this door. I want the world to know, and this is the first time I've ever done anything that gives the world a chance to know Christ. Television won't do it, radio won't do it, but the computer will. Because there's a network in the computer that goes worldwide, and I'm tapping that network through my webpage. Pray for me. Pray for me that I'll reach them as never before. Well, that's enough said. Got to go. God love you till we meet again.